So our day begins here at the El Paso History Museum, completely free. So shout out to El Paso keeping their museums free, but excited to see what history holds here for El Paso. Interesting, some early artifacts of early people here in El Paso. Got a sandal. All the way to a dart point. Cool. Love how they have a simulated archaeological dig for like the artifacts that they found for the early people here in the El Paso del Norte region. Kind of gives you time frames of everything. Like of all the clay pots and tools used. Not sure how I feel about wearing sandals like that. Plant fibers. Prehistoric. Happy with my Under Armours. Got a little simulated mission here with a bell. At least a little walkway. Very cool. That art is really cool on that. It's a folding fan with a colored lithograph. Some couple keys. Some silver jewelry. Really cool. How about an old mission door from between at least 1740 and 1744. It says the mission church in Pueblo at Yoselta were destroyed by floodwaters and rebuilt. Now, how cool is this? An old wagon. Transport goods, supplies, food. That is really incredible. Gotta love the overhead map. Dated, what, 1859? Downtown El Paso. You see the Mexico border right there. Some artifacts from around there. And also to talk about El Paso's first newspaper. It says here in the 1800s that El Paso's population grew from 3,000 to over 8,000 in the 1800s. A lot of folks coming out here to work in mines, construction, smelting, all the kind of blue-collar jobs. Map outlines some landmarks at the time, which again, I'm not sure if they still stand, but the National Theater, public school building, railroad bridge, baseball grounds. Very interesting. Some items from the Industrial Revolution and the westward movement, passing through El Paso. That one goes to LA, but that's really cool. Southern Pacific, sunset route of all the train involvement. How about this for a centerpiece of a old-timey scale? Or at least I think that's a scale. Scale for like goods, maybe? Supplies? I don't know. Interesting here about Fort Bliss. Talking about how it started back in 1848 with only 257 men on a small ranch. But uniforms here. Some letter and also to a army pin for Mexican service. And apparently William Taft made an appearance back in the 1900s. Brokered some peace with Mexico's president. We get into the World War II section of El Paso, and obviously with Fort Bliss here, played a pivotal role in World War II. As Fort Bliss held one of the most significant involvements in serving Army commands for deployment into Asia and Europe. As many as 15,000 men were selected. There's one of them. Little Mahjong kit, that's really cool. Now we're getting into a little modern history and a little music flair. I love it. And some of the good amps. Some KLAQ, big radio station out here. K-Rod. Very cool. More on the music scene out here in El Paso. Good old record. old audio mixer. Granted, I feel like I've used something like this in my radio days. Technically it's similar, but not that actual model, but it feels like it sometimes. Old school strobe light systems, that is awesome. That's from the old 60s and 70s era. Very cool, all the records that have been recorded in here in El Paso. Apparently they have large-scale studios like Sonic Ranch, El Adobe, and Beacon Hill. Love to have this poster right here, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, special guest star, nonetheless, 1975 out here in El Paso. How about this? So again, we think of music boxes, they're like little itty-bitty things, but now check this out. Back from 1889. Just crank it on, and there you go, you got some music. I feel like I'm at the Rock and Roll History Museum or something like that. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame here in El Paso. Some classic guitars. Got some rock band t-shirts over here. Seems like El Paso was definitely a music scene. That's kind of cool. Especially for like hip hop, metal, classic, it's just everything, punk. All found its way here to El Paso. How about the golden drum set for the Bobby Fuller 4 right here on display? That is incredible. I hate when you walk into a history museum and that, obviously again, the record player makes sense. Cassette player kind of makes sense. But now we're getting into CD player of like, what is this? I'm old. I hate it. Look at that. 90s nostalgia right there. Even on the cassette players. Then we get into El Paso's homegrown, the Korean War. A little history on the military side, obviously with Fort Bliss, but excited to see what all they got here as I see a little Marine outfits here. See what else is here on the second floor. Talk about the Red Scare here during the Korean War, which again kind of happened as well too in World War II, but affected El Paso. But so interesting to see Harry Truman right below him, Kim Il-sung, obviously again the father of North Korea, former president. But yeah, interesting to see those two lacquered on a wall together. All sorts of artifacts here from, looks like crackers and candy, old ration can to medals. A couple photos there in the back end. A couple helmets and hats, and then a nice little rifle. Dog tags, canteen. All from that Korean War time. It makes sense why they're talking about at least Korean War and what it did to affect El Paso. Obviously Fort Bliss is an involvement, but apparently El Paso became a notable destination for Korean refugees after the war. So we got a whole section here of Korean artifacts, clothing, masks I see over there on the far wall. A couple vases, but very interesting. How about that for a king's crown? It's a replica though, but dated in the at least 80s is when the replica was made, but I love the use of the mother of pearl into a lot of these artifacts. Really cool. So for Korea's flag, there's a bunch of symbolism in it, which makes sense, again, similar to like the US flag, but symbolizes thought, philosophy, and mysticism of the Oriental. The circles divide equally and blocked in perfect balance. Red represents yang, blue represents The two opposites express the dualism of the cosmos. Fire and water, day and night, dark and light, construction and deconstruction, etc., etc. Interesting. Very, very cool. Here's a piece of the wire fence from the DMZ that separates North Korea and South Korea. So here's about the USS Pueblo that was captured by Korean forces back in the Korean War. Got your hat, patches, POW kind of license plate holder. This is what my grandfather did in World War II. He was a truck driver. Not sure if he had patches like that. Again, not sure. He's passed on a while back, but got the recipient of 1 million miles, no accidents. The section we're in now is talking about the indigenous people here around the El Paso area. A couple Kachinas in a vase from the Hopi people. Very beautiful. Pottery items. Looks like this is more Hopi as well too. Looks like this comes from Pueblo Laguna, or pottery. Canteen and a couple jars. Now this is recently created, but how about a carved rainbow flagstone? Kind of mimic what was going on back in the day. Some jewelry pieces here. Created recently, but use jade. Well, we have a wedding basket set of 2 here, woven. It seems like from the early 1900s. Greetings from El Paso outside of the History Museum, but not a bad experience. It's free, so can't complain on that. 2 stories, a lot of interesting artifacts. So kind of cool. Learned about some interesting things about El Paso. I'm stepping outside here. Day's getting a little sunnier, not as bad. It's a little windy, not as bad as yesterday, thankfully, but right there is the home of the El Paso Chihuahuas Little League team. Beautiful shot of downtown El Paso. Pretty cool. Definitely say El Paso is a very underrated city. It's very gorgeous. It reminds me of Vegas, with the mountains surrounding it and just the desert vibes and everything. Low key, I could see myself living in El Paso. It's pretty cool. But we're gonna explore. Probably head over to the Chihuahua store, go check out that baseball stadium, and then see where the rest of the day takes us until wrestling later on tonight. There it is, a shot of the El Paso Chihuahuas baseball field. Really cool stadium. We're here at the El Paso International Airport Gateway, but that is a nice looking field. Give credit to El Paso. Love to see a game here one day. So interesting, they convert the stadium from the Chihuahuas baseball when they're not in action to El Paso locomotives. So soccer being played here. Very interesting. How cool is that? Speaking of which as well too, with the 2 teams got a little merge from both, again, soccer side and baseball side, so yeah. Had to do it. Just had to. Interesting architecture here for the Scottish Rite Temple. Got these out front guarding it, but very unique. Interesting, again, right next to the stadium here downtown. Figured while I was in the area, I had to go check out the legendary Sun Bowl, home of the UTEP Miners, home to a former WAC opponent for the University of Wyoming, who again, they will now be a part of the Mountain West Conference moving forward. But interesting. Let's check this place out and see what we can see here in the mountains of El Paso. Quick look at the field there for the Sun Bowl. Very cool. It is very interesting. Very windy here in El Paso, but legendary field. Bowl games won here by the Wyoming Cowboys back in the day. Well back in the day, but maybe one day. Again, with Wyoming being close by, go see a game here. Maybe. Oh, that wind. Cold. Bonus footage of my trip out to El Paso, where this time it takes us to the U.S. Border Patrol Museum, another free museum by El Paso, which is nice.
interesting to see the sights inside of there, from seized weapons to seized vehicles, all the way to the vehicles that they've used in the past to secure the border, whether it's the south border or north border. They had a little section as well in there, but very cool, very unique. Outside was kind of interesting as well too. They had more vehicles like a Hummer and a SUV as well too that they've used on display. But the interesting thing is that they had warning signs of unexploded ordnances like missiles or bombs or something that was out in the fields, and also to a little interesting sign of, again, don't let your children play or they'll explode and die. So very interesting, very cool, very unique museum. But last but not least, again, it's free, so again, recommend everyone checking it out.